All right, Dalton, continuing our top 10 positional rankings with our top 10 safeties in college football. Wasn't a great safety class in 2024 NFL draft, Dalton, but that's because a lot of them just returned to school, man. It is a loaded position that we have in the nation right now. One of the strongest, I think, that we have in college football. Before we start, though, we want to mention one guy off the top here that will not be in our list, but would be if he didn't get hurt, and that is Rod Moore, the safety out of Michigan, who came back for another year. He tore his ACL in March. And Dalton and I both agree he would be easily a top 10 safety in the country in our list. But the fact that, we're kind of ranking these guys for next year, he might miss all of next season, if not most of it. So that's a big reason why he wasn't on this list. We want to shout him out at the top because Rod Moore, very, very good player, and hopefully he gets out there soon. Hopefully his recovery is going well. But torn ACL in March, man, is just a brutal blow for that Michigan defense.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned the depth at this position, the talent. Like, we've had a couple of down years at safety in college, right? And I think one of the stat that I found that sticks out to me. So last year, Max, there was 8 Power 5 safeties that graded at least a 78 in both run defense and coverage. 7 of them are in this top 10. 7 of them. And the only other one, the 8th guy, is Katano Ladapo, who's in the NFL now. That's it. 7 of the 8 guys are in this top 10. This is a renaissance for this position, and there's some really, really young guys. I mean, there's some freaks. I won't even lie to you. Safety, at least for this season, and probably the next 2, considering a couple of the guys towards the top, it's back. If there's a couple of years to start drafting safeties, it's 2025 and 2026. There is a boatload of talent on this list, and several guys on the back end of it that I thought about, probably 4 or 5 more that I thought about throwing in the back end of my top 10. It's a loaded group. It's actually in contention for the most talented position on defense. Like, everybody's going to talk about, obviously, D-line's loaded and corners loaded, but safety's just as good, man. There's some freaks in college football right now.
I think it might even be the best defensive position right now. Like that and running back are probably my 2 strongest positions that we have in college football right now. But let's start off with our top 10 list with the first of 2 Iowa Hawkeyes that we're going to get into. We're also going to talk about an Iowa corner later. So even though they lost Cooper DeJean, Dalton, they still have a damn good secondary. In fact, top 3 secondary in the country, in my opinion. But at number 10 is Quinn Schult from Iowa. No returning Power 5 safety has been more valuable over the last 2 years than Quinn Schult, according to wins above average metric. He's one of 3 returning Power 5 safeties who has earned 85-plus grades, both in coverage and as a run defender. So Quinn Schult, really, really talented player, and Iowa's defense is both a run defender and in coverage. And like I said, man, that Iowa secondary is loaded, and a big reason why is because they have a top 10 safety in Quinn Schult and another top 10 safety that we'll get into in a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's a loaded defense, and I'll tell you, we'll go to the Big 12 for number 9, and a team in West Virginia that we've talked about their offense a lot so far in these rankings. They were on our underrated teams list, but I'll tell you what, they got some weapons on defense too, and they've got a safety back there, and Aubrey Burks. He's, over the last 2 years, got a 90.2 overall grade. That's 4th best in the Power 5. This is a true ball-hawking free safety, couple interceptions and 4 pass breakups this past year. When he's back there in a deep half, especially in zone coverage, you better know where he is because he is going to find the football. 3 interceptions over the last 2 years and 3 more that he actually dropped. If he just catches the football, this is a candidate to lead the nation in interceptions this coming year if you get some positive regression going. Aubrey Burks is the head of a secondary that got some transfers in there. West Virginia, actually, the more I was looking at it this past week, their entire unit might be the most underrated secondary in the country. They got a couple transfers in from Northwestern, but Burks is the centerpiece. What he can do, in a deep half, even sometimes single high, he's one of the true ball hawking free safeties we have, and he's a really good run defense player too, an 81.1 run defense grade. One of the best safeties in the country, the best safety in the Big 12 is at West Virginia and Aubrey Burks.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will be surprised to hear that, man. And West Virginia, man, I love them, man. I think they're a really underrated team. We mentioned them in our underrated teams episode, and the biggest wise are secondary. They have a really good run game as well. Garrett Green at quarterback, Wyatt Milam at tackle. I mean, I really like West Virginia's team next year. I think they can surprise a lot of people in the Big 12. At number 8 now is a guy that Michigan, now with Rod Moore's injury, Michigan could have used this guy, and that is Keon Sabbagh, who actually transferred from Michigan to Alabama. He's actually wasn't even a starter for Michigan last year. And a couple guys, Michigan returned both their starting safeties in Rod Moore and Makari Page. But man, when Sabbagh was out there, he looked awesome. He played 360 snaps last year, so still a healthy amount of snaps. He was one of 6 Power 5 safeties who earned 80-plus grades, both as a run defender and in coverage. And despite only playing playing the 161st most coverage snaps. He had the third most forced incompletions, man. So that's insane. Like, when he was out there, he was making plays on the football, man. And I know Alabama lost Caleb Downs, who we'll talk about much later on this list. But I think Alabama did a good job in, replacing him a little bit, adding a guy like Keon Sabbagh in the transfer portal. I think that's a big, big get for the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, I agree totally, and it's one of the few safeties on this list not in the Big Ten, right? And he came from the Big Ten, so it should probably count as a half. But we're gonna go back up to Wisconsin. I'll tell you what, they've got an absolute weapon in Hunter Wohler at safety. Now, we talked about the last couple of guys; they're ball hawking, free safeties, things like. Hunter Wohler is an animal. He will just come up. Now, he had 3 interceptions and 2 pass breakups, but he's coming to hit you. He's more into that, like, Jaden Hicks kind of box safety role, curl flat role. There was a play in the bowl game against LSU where he absolutely leveled Malik Neighbors coming through on a slide route underneath on an RPO. This guy is a heavy hitter, but he's always in the right spot in coverage, too. An 89.9 coverage grade that was second best in the country. An 80-plus run defense grade, one of just 5 Power 5 safeties, with an 80-plus in both. Hunter Wohler is like this modern strong safety slot-ish type guy who that's the one big thing to me. He's coming to hit you. He just loves, he's one of those Wisconsin safeties, Big Ten safeties, loves playing physical football, coming down to hit you in the flat, coming down to hit in the run game. He's a 230-pound monster back there, kind of the strong safety slot hybrid at Wisconsin.
Yeah, man, led the Power 5 with 11 tackles for loss from no gain. Like, this guy, I love Hunter Wohler, man. I think he's a really underrated player. So he checks in there at number 7 for us. At number 6, another Big Ten safety. And trust me, we have more coming from the Big Ten. At number 6 is Xavier Watts, the other Iowa safety I alluded to earlier. He actually finished 2023, Dalton, as the most valuable safety in the country. According to our wins above average metric, he had an 88.4 PFF coverage grade, which was tied for 4th in the Power 5. He's got excellent instincts, I think. And I think he's going to be one of the biggest reasons why Iowa has one of the best secondaries in college football. Again, they lost Cooper DeJean, but they bring back 2 excellent safeties in Nwankpa and Quinn Schult, and then the best slot corner in the country, Sebastian Castro. They're still going to have an elite secondary and a really good defense next year, too.
Big time. No, Iowa, that's one of the best secondaries in the country. And we transition to another one that across the board is, and one with the Bronco Nagurski Award winner at Notre Dame, and that's Xavier Watts, man. Led all players with 7 interceptions last year, 3 pass breakups, a 75.1 coverage grade. He's a true free safety, much in the same way I was talking about Aubrey Burks earlier. He's a true ball hawking free safety. He wants to find the football, no question. And you notice that more than ever in the game against USC, right? 2 interceptions, a pass breakup, and a forced fumble. Had the game of his life against the reigning Heisman Trophy winner and Caleb Williams, and Notre Dame just was a big reason that they just shellacked USC in that game. Xavier Watts as a true ball hawking free safety to lead the nation in interceptions, a huge accomplishment. To win the Nagurski is big time. He could get even better too. I mean, there's other parts of his game in run defense. He could be a little more well-rounded, sometimes a little over-aggressive, but you can't question his effort, his attitude, and his ball hawking skills. Xavier Watts on the back of Notre Dame's, and they got some great corners. They got a great D-line. We already mentioned Jack Kaiser in our top 10 linebacker video. Xavier Watts is like the back-end piece that's going to force turnovers for them. That's his job. Benjamin Morrison at corner, shutdown guy. Xavier Watts is finding the football and taking it for a pick 6.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we'll get into it in his scouting report video that we're going to do a little bit later, but I think his biggest issue is his tackling right now. He missed 18% of his tackle attempts last year, which is 8th percentile. The next guy on this list has no issues as a tackler. That is Kevin Winston Jr. from Penn State. So get this, as a sophomore, had a 2% missed tackle rate, which was 2nd among all safeties in the country. This guy is as sure as they come as a tackler. 90.6 run defense grade, 3rd among FBS safeties as well. So you hear all that and you're like, okay, he's a really, really good run defender and great tackler as well. Really, really good in coverage too, man. He was the only safety in college football who had 85 plus grades, both as a run defender and in coverage. Kevin Winston Jr., learn the name, man. He is, I'm not just saying because I'm a Penn State fan, he is one of the most underrated players in college football right now. I don't think enough people are talking about him, and I think his well-rounded game is going to evoke some comparisons to another former great Penn State safety in Jaquan Brisker, who was just an all-around stud for the Nittany Lions. I love Kevin Winston Jr., man. I think he deserves a lot more love, and he could be a first-round pick in next year's draft, man, if he keeps this all-around game up.
Absolutely. He might be the most fundamentally sound safety in the country and tied for second in overall grade last season, but there was one guy ahead of him. And at number 3 here, this is honestly Maxie's number. I thought about him that he might have been number 1. This is my favorite guy on this list. He's on my list. If I was making a list of one of my favorite guys at every position we've done, this would be it. Dylan Thieneman from Purdue. The best safety in the country last year with an 89.5 overall grade. For my money, the best single high free safety in the country by far. And his 89.5 grade, Max, I went back and looked at it, the third best by a true freshman in PFF history. The only 2 guys ahead of him were Jordan Whitehead, longtime NFL veteran, and Derwin James. Those are the only 2 true freshmen with better overall grades than Dylan Thieneman. This guy's a freak. His speed is off the absolute charts. 100 PFF game athleticism score as a true freshman. He's got nobody, not even the 2 guys ahead of him have range like he has. If he was in like a Dan Quinn defense right now, he would have flashes of Earl Thomas, and he's bigger than Earl Thomas. This is what Purdue has in this guy: 6 interceptions and a 90.2 run defense grade in a defense that plays cover 1 at the second highest rate in college football, and he plays deep. 20 to 25 yards back almost every play, and he still managed to get a 90 run defense grade. Sideline to sideline range, super aggressive tackler, physical like crazy. Sometimes they go to cover 0 and blitz him, and he's just in the quarterback's lap immediately. Dylan Thieneman is, I could argue him up to number 1. I really could. He's the competition. The next 2 guys being in the SEC is probably the tiebreaker, but this is as much a freak athlete at any position as we have in college football right now. You want a single high free safety in the 2026 draft. He can't even come out next year. This is your guy. I would project him right now as a first-round pick in 26, no question.
Yeah, absolutely. He had 6 interceptions, Dalton, allowed 5 catches. So he caught the ball more than he allowed catches last year. He is a superstar, and I know a lot of people, we're talking about him in a little bit, but a lot of people say, Caleb Downs, easily the best sophomore safety in the country. It's not easily, because Dylan Thieneman is right on his heels, man. I think he is. That safety class, we might have 2 safeties in the top 10, Dalton, in that draft right now. I don't know. It could happen. I understand it could. Maybe some other guys will emerge, and they will. But
there are certain I think Thieneman right this minute in the NFL would be as good as somebody like a Juan Thornhill or something like that at the very least right this minute. He's got range that I don't think 75 to 80% of NFL safeties have right now.
No, he's absurd, man. But he's not number 2 on our list, and he could certainly be number 2. Number 2 is Malaki Starks from Georgia. So really had a great freshman year. He led all Georgia defensive players that year in their national championship season with 847 snaps. He had 8 combined interceptions and forced incompletions, which were tied for 5th in the SEC. Built that off that with an 84.8 run defense grade as a sophomore, which was 7th in the Power 5. He also tied for 6th in the Power 5 with 7 forced incompletions in 2023. So really good athlete, standout run defender, and tackler, really good tackler as well. Who consistently makes plays in coverage right now. He is the easy favorite to be the number 1 safety taken in the 2025 NFL draft and should be probably a first-round pick in the 2025 NFL draft too.
Absolutely. He's going to be the number 1. Between Kevin Winston might compete with him, but right now Stark's going to be the number 1 guy going into the 2025 draft. But this next guy at number 1, and Starks almost any other year would be number 1. But Caleb Downs, and he, last year to Alabama, now transferring to Ohio State. He makes almost no sense when you think about it. You've got a guy who came in as a true freshman to Alabama in the SEC and was immediately the best safety in the SEC, an 85.6 overall grade. I mentioned with Thieneman how Thieneman had the 3rd best overall grade ever by a true freshman safety. Downs was 6th, and he was playing in the SEC, playing against LSU and a Heisman Trophy winner, playing against Ole Miss, playing against Georgia, playing against just all the nastiest offenses in the country, right? Playing against Texas. And he just comes in and he fits right in a Nick Saban defense that's very hard for a safety to operate because they have to be in several different spots. You have to be versatile and play the ball, and you're in single matchups a lot. But Again, he's another one of those 8 guys with 78 plus grades in run defense and coverage. And from week 4 onward, basically the story with Downs last year is for 3 weeks, the first 3 games, he looked like a freshman. And after that, he absolutely did not. You watch him from like in SEC play onward, week 4 onward, he was actually the highest graded safety after the first 3 weeks in the country. So it took him 3 games to figure out SEC football, and then he was the best safety in the country. It makes almost no sense. And for Ohio State and an already loaded defense to get this guy almost feels unfair, honestly. He can cover it. 88.9 coverage grade was top 5. He can play the run. His instincts for such a young kid are off the charts. Absolutely off the charts. Ohio State got a gem and probably a potential top 15 pick in 2026 in Caleb Downs.
If not higher, man. He is truly, truly special. I'm going to go down as one of the best safety prospects I think we've ever seen in the NFL draft, and I think he is going to be I can't wait to see what he is in Ohio State's defense, maybe even offense next year, Dalton, with that report that came out that he might be playing a little running back for the Buckeyes. I don't think I love that, considering how loaded they are at running back already, but he is easily our number 1 safety in college football heading into the 2024 season. Let us know in the comments below what you think about our list, who should be higher, who should be lower, who do we miss in our top 10 as well. Let us know in the comments. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. We've got plenty more videos coming previewing the 2024 college football season.